Hello learners, welcome back to our YouTube channel. Myself Simran from Team CloudyML, and today we will be seeing a Python interview question, and this interview question was asked by the company Google. Okay, so before beginning with the main question, do answer this quiz. So the question for the quiz is, what will be the output of the following code snippet? So this is a code snippet which involves lists and tuples, and you need to solve this snippet, and you can put down the answer in the comment section. We will definitely let you know that your answer was right or wrong, and watch this video till the end to get the answer for this question. Okay, so now let's move ahead with the main question. So the problem statement says that return the length of the longest string of consecutive elements from an unsorted array of integer, which is nums. Okay, so the the name of the array is nums, and we need to return the length of the longest consecutive elements. So let's understand this with an example. See, suppose this is the list which has 6 elements right now: 100, 4, 200, 1, 3, and 2. So we need to return the longest consecutive elements. Consecutive elements means elements that occur one after the other. So if we see, then 1, 2, 3, and 4. We have 4 consecutive elements, whereas 100 and 200 aren't consecutive. So the output will be 4 because the longest consecutive element sequence is 1, 2, 3, 4. So the output will be 4. Okay, so let's see how to solve this question. Okay, I'll be showing you 2 approaches. So first, let's begin with the first approach. In the first approach, let's first create a function which is longest consecutive. Okay, and this function will simply accept the list of elements. Okay, and now let's define a variable which is longest streak, and this longest streak will be our final output. After that, we will be iterating through the numbers. So for num in nums, we will first store this number in the current num equals to num, and the longest streak we will be setting to 1. Okay, now after this, the current streak we will be setting to 1. These all are variables, okay, that we are declaring. After that, we will be running a while loop. Okay, so while current num is current num plus 1 in nums, which means current num plus 1 means the consecutive number, the number which is 1 more than the current number. So we are just checking that our consecutive for the current number is the consecutive number present in the list which is given, and if it is present, then we simply increment the current num by 1. Okay, after incrementing, what we are going to do is we are also going to increment the current streak. Okay, plus 1. Okay, after incrementing the current streak, what we're going to do is we're going to replace the longest streak with the maximum of current streak and longest streak, which means that we will be choosing the longest streak, the value for longest streak, which is max of current streak and longest streak. Longest streak, comma. So after giving this max, finally we will be returning the longest streak value. I'll hide this. So after returning the longest streak, first let's run this code. Okay, the function has been created, and we will simply try this function with the sample input. So longest consecutive, and pass a list to this Okay, we will simply pass the list that we saw in the sample input. And 1, 3, 2. Now let's run this and see that we get the output as correct. Okay, so we got the output as 4. So as we saw in the example, the correct output is 4. So our code is completely right. Now let's see that how this code exactly works. Okay, so I'll explain the code to you step by step by using the example that we saw. So our example is we have the list nums. Just a second. So our list nums is 100, 4, 200. Then we have 1 and 3 and 2. Okay, so this is our list. Now we will be implementing the code step by step. So first, when the function begins, we define the longest streak as 0. So let's use some different keywords. Okay, so for longest streak, let's use just a second. For longest streak, we will use L underscore S so that it will be easy for us. So L underscore S is equals to 0. First, we will be setting the longest streak to 0, correct? Now, we have to iterate from for num in nums, which means we will be iterating through each of the elements of this num. So, for the first iteration, the value of num will be 100, correct? So we have started with the iteration. Then the first step in this is that the current num variable is set to num. So the current num variable, let's denote the current num variable as c underscore n equals 100. Okay, after that, the current streak is set to 1, which means let's give the name as c underscore s is equals to 1. It is set to 1. After that, we run a while loop. See, while current num plus 1 in nums. Now, current num plus 1 is so while current num is 100 plus 1, which means 101. So, is 101 present in this list? No, which means our while loop will not work. Okay, so that is why we will not go inside this, but it will directly skip to this step, which is longest streak is equals to max of longest streak and current streak. So now our longest streak will be max of longest streak value over here is 0. Okay, and current streak value up till this step is 1. So 1. So our longest streak value will now be 1. Okay, so up till now we have completed it for a single iteration. Now we will be beginning with the next iteration. So second iteration, the num value will be 4. So we will follow the same steps. The current number will be set to 4. Current streak will be set to 1. And now while loop will run. So we have to check that the current number plus 1 is present in this list or not. So 4 plus 1 is 5. But 5 is not present in this list. So the while loop will not work again. So now again, the longest streak shall be found as max of the current longest streak value is 1 and the current streak value is 1, correct? This longest streak and this current streak, 1, 1, the answer will be 1. Okay. Now, we will move ahead with the third iteration. Okay, so for the third iteration, the number value will be 200, correct? So, again, we will follow the same steps. The current number will be 200. the current streak will be 1. Then while loop will execute while 200 plus 1. But 201 is not present in the list. So the while loop will not execute any steps, and the longest streak value shall be max of again 1 comma 1 is this value and this value. So the max value will be nothing but 1 L comma L upon S. Max of 1 comma 1 will be 1. Okay, now let's move ahead with the next iteration. In the next iteration, we will have the value as the num value will now be the next element, which is 1, correct? The next element in our list is 1. So the num, this is the fourth iteration, right? So the num value will be 1, okay, and then we will again find the current number, which is 1, current streak, which is 1. Okay, now next, after finding the current number, current streak, we have the while loop. In the while loop, we calculate the current number plus 1. So while your current number plus 1 will be 2. And if you notice, then 2 is present in the list. Correct? Our list is, I'll write the list here again. 100, 4, 200, 1, 3 and 2. Correct? So 2 is present in this list. Correct? So we will be going inside the while loop. So now current number has to be incremented and current streak also has to be incremented by 1. So now the current number will be replaced to 2 because 1 plus 1 will be 2 and current streak will also be 2. Okay. Now what we have to do is the while loop. If you know about the while loop, then the while loop continues to run until a condition is false. So now this current number, what we have found out over here, will again go into this while loop. So current number plus 1. Now we will find out 2 plus 1. 2 plus 1 is nothing but 3 and 3 is present in the list, correct? So we will again perform the while loop steps where current number has to be incremented and current streak also has to be incremented. So the current number will now be 3. Sorry, I've written 4 over here. The current number will be 3 and current streak will also be 3. Now again, we will perform the while loop because while loop goes on continuously until the condition is false. So again, this current number will go in the while loop. So while 3 plus 1, which is 4. As we know, 4 is present in the list. So the current number will be incremented to 4. Current streak will be 4. Now again, this 4 will go to the while loop. Okay, and the condition will be checked again. So take this to the while loop. While 4 plus 1 equals to 5 is present in the list. But as we know, 5 is not present in the list. So this while loop will not work. After coming out of the while loop, our step is to find out the longest streak. Okay, and the longest streak up till now, see, current streak we know is 4. The current value of the current streak and the previous value of the longest streak was 1 and now it is 4. So the new value for the longest streak will be 4. Okay, it will be 4. So we have got a new value of the longest streak. Now what we need to do is we need to go ahead with the iteration. Okay, because we have completed the iteration for the number 1. So the next number in the list, which is the 5th iteration, the number will be 3. Correct? So now again C underscore n will be set to 3 and current streak will be set to 1. After that we will run the while loop again. So while 3 plus 1 equals to 4, which is present in the list. So the current number will be incremented. So 3 plus 1 is 4. Current streak will be 2 because the current streak value is 1. Okay, now this will go again in the loop. in the while loop. So while 4 plus 1 equals to 5, which is not present in the list, so nothing will be executed. So find out the longest streak value, which will be maximum of the current longest streak value is 4, correct, which we found out in the previous iteration, and the current streak value is 2. So the longest streak value will remain as 4 because 4 is the maximum. So we have ended this iteration. Now let's move ahead with the last iteration of the number 2. So the num2, and you need to again perform the same steps. The current number will be 2, the current streak will be 1. So again start with the while loop. While 2 plus 1 equals to 3 is present in the list. So current number will be incremented to 3 because current number was 2. So plus 1 will take place. Okay. And current streak will also be incremented. So it will be 2. Now take this current number again to the while loop. So while 3 plus 1 equals to 4 is present in the list. So current number will be incremented to 4. Current streak will be 3. Okay, after this, the current number 4 will again be going to the while loop, correct? So while 4 plus 1 equals 5. This is not present in the list. Okay, so the while loop will break. Okay, whenever the condition is not satisfied, the while loop breaks. Okay, see here also the while loop has broken because the condition did not satisfy. Now we will find out the longest streak, which will be the max of longest streak up till now was 4. So the value 4, comma, the current streak value here is 3. So 3. So the final value of the longest streak will be 4. And we have ended all the iterations, correct? So the final output for the longest streak is the value 4. So what our code will output is the value 4. Okay, so as we see, the answer for this 4 was 4. But see, if you see the time complexity of this code is n raised to 3. Why? Because for this for loop, the code runs for n times. N means the number of elements present in the list. Okay, and after running this for n times, see, first for the first for loop, it runs n times. Okay, for the first for loop, it runs for n times. Okay, and then after this while loop also runs for n times. Okay, while loop runs for n times. And as we know that in the while loop also, we go on incrementing the value and we again come back to this while loop. Correct. So that is why we also perform lookup. Lookup means we follow the while loop again and again. So in the lookup also, it executes n times. Okay, n is the maximum limit. So that is why the time complexity of this code becomes n raised to 3. So that is why this code is computationally expensive, because n raised to 3 is a big number. So for that, we are going to follow the next approach, okay, wherein we try to bring down the time complexity. So let's first code the second approach, and then I'll explain the approach to you as we saw for this approach. Okay, so we are again going to form a def function, which is the longest consecutive. And similarly, this will also accept the list. And now in this function also, in the beginning, we are going to set the longest streak to 0. And in this case, we are going to find out the set of numbers. We are going to convert this list to set. So set function on the nums. Okay, and then we are going to start with the while loop. We are going to for loop, and we are going to perform this for loop on the number set. What set will do is it will remove the duplicate elements, and we will get single elements in the set. Now we are going to first check that whether the previous number of this number is present in the list or not. So if num minus 1 not in nums, then we are going to perform an action which is current number will be set to num and the current streak will be set to 1, as we did in the previous part. Okay. After doing this, we will also run the while loop as we did in the previous part. Okay, so just let's copy down the entire part ahead is similar to the previous one. So let's simply copy it. Okay, there's an indentation error, so keep in mind. So now let's run this. So the function will be formed and let's use the same input to check the function. But don't forget to change the function name. Run this and it should print the same output. Let's see if there's an error. Okay, so this should be nums. My mistake. So you see we have got the same output, which is the number 4. Okay, now let's understand this code as well. So first, let's begin. Let me clear the page. So let's write the list again, which is nums. Same, it is 100. Then 4, 200. You can try it with your list as well, but for understanding it and explaining it well, I'm using the same list. So first it will define the longest streak to 0. So let's do it. Let's use the same variables in this case as well. ls equals to 0 and it is converting this nums to set. So num of set. I'll keep the sequence same because in our case we don't have any duplicates. So let's keep the sequence as same. Sequence won't affect the code much. So this is the set we have created. Now, after creating the set, it will start running the loop, for loop. So let's begin with the first iteration, which is the iteration number 1. The first number will be 100. Right? After starting with the loop, it will check whether number minus 1 not in nums. Correct? So number minus 1 here will be correct. So number minus 1 here will be 100 minus 1. Correct? So if 100 minus 1 not in list. So 99, as you know, is not there in this list. Correct? So we will go inside this if loop. Okay, what it will do is it will set the current number to num and current streak as 1. So your current number is 100 and current streak will be set to 1. Next, what it will do is it will go to the while loop. So it will check that while current num plus 1 in nums, so current number is 100 and 100 plus 1 is 101. So it will check that while 100 plus 1 in list, but 101 is not present in the list. So this while loop will not get executed. And what will happen is we will come out of the while loop. And the next step after coming out of the while loop is the longest streak. And the longest streak value is set between longest streak and current streak, the maximum value between those two. So the current longest streak is 0 as we have set here before. So 0, comma, the current streak value is 1. So the longest streak value will be set to 1. Okay. So our first iteration is completed. Let's move ahead with the second iteration. So the num value will be now 4. Again we will check if num, which is 4, minus 1 is not in 3. Is not in list. But as we know, 3 is present in the list. So this if loop will not execute. Whatever if code is there in this part, this entire part will be skipped along with the while, because while will only be executed when this if is executed, but our if condition is not satisfied. Okay, so that is why this entire code block will be skipped, and we will come to this step, which is the longest streak step. So it will simply calculate the value between the longest streak. So it will simply be max 1, 1. Longest streak value still is 1 over here, the current streak, and this is the longest streak. So 1, 1, longest streak value will remain 1. This iteration is complete. Let's move ahead to the next iteration, wherein the number will now be 200. Similarly, if 200 minus 1 is not present in the list, so 199 is not present in the list, so we need to execute the 2 steps over here between the if block. So current num will be set to num and current streak will be incremented. So the current num is set to 200 and current streak is set to 1. Okay, we need to do it, and then we will check the while loop by incrementing the current num. So while 200 plus 1 in list, but as we know 201 is not present in the list, so this while loop will not execute, and the current streak will be max of again 1, 1, which will be 1. So current streak value is set to 1. Now this iteration is complete. Let's move ahead with the next iteration. So as we know, the 4th iteration, the num will be 1. Again, we will check if 1 minus 1 is not present in the list. So 1 minus 1 is 0, which is not present, correct? So this will execute Cn, current number will set to 1, current streak will be set to 1. Now while loop will be checked while 1 plus 1 is present in the list. So 1 plus 1 is 2. This is present in the list. So current number will be incremented. So current number is 1. It will be incremented to 2. Current streak will also be incremented to 2, which was 1 before. Now it is incremented to 2. Now again, as we know, while loop will execute until the condition is false. So this will go over here. Now while 2 plus 1, current number, which is 2 plus 1 is equals to 3. 3 is also present in the loop, in the list or in the set. So current number is incremented, which is to 3. Current streak will be incremented to 3. Correct? Now again, this will go to the while loop. So while 3 plus 1 equals to 4. 4 is also present in the set. Okay, so again it will perform the similar steps and it will increment the current number to 4, current streak to 4. Now again what will happen? The 4 will also go into the while loop because the condition has not got false yet. So 4 while 4 plus 1 equals to find the list. But the condition is not satisfied, so it will break. It will come to the longest streak step. Until now, the longest streak was 1, but now the current streak is 4. So it will be compared and the longest streak will be 4. Why? Because maximum number between 1 and 4 is 4. So the longest streak value will be now 4. And the iteration will break. The iteration is complete. Now moving ahead with the 5th iteration. Okay, we will follow the same steps again. So the number will be now 3. So if 3 minus 1 is not present in the list, 3 minus 1 is 2, but it is present in the list. So the if condition will not be satisfied and all the code blocks, the entire code block will be skipped and we will come to the longest streak step. Now in the longest streak step, again we will find out the max between the longest streak and current streak, which will remain 4. Current streak, as we saw in the last iteration, the current streak was here, it was 4. So that is why we compare 4, 4 which will remain as 4. So this iteration is also complete. Again, we will do the 6th iteration in which num is equals to 2. So if 2 minus 1 is not present in nums, 2 minus 1 is 1. So 1 is present in nums. So that is why if condition is not satisfied, and longest streak value again will be max of 4, 4, which is 4. So all the iterations are complete. We went through all the elements in the iteration. So after completing all the iteration, we find out the longest streak value as 4, and 4 will be our final output, as we know. Okay, so for this code, the time complexity, if you see, you will say that in this also we have while loop. So why isn't the time complexity huge? But the time complexity for this code is O(n). Why? Because see, over here we have a single for loop. Okay, for that for loop, the time complexity is n, correct? So for this outer for loop, the time complexity is n. Okay, but the while loop is only executed when this if condition is satisfied. So the while loop will not be executed each and every time. It will only get executed if this if is satisfied. Correct? So that is why the time complexity remains to be n. See, here for this if the time complexity will be suppose n, and for this while it will be n. So it will be n plus n. So that is why we consider the overall time complexity as n, because the if condition and the while condition will not be satisfied every time. Correct? So that is why we don't consider it, and so we consider the time complexity to be O(n). So the time complexity for this code is O(n), and it is supposed to be more efficient than the previous code, because the time complexity of the previous code was O(n)^, because we had 3 loops over there. One was the for loop, then the while loop, and the lookup was also performed on the while loop. So that is why the time complexity in that case was O(n)^. But in here we have O(n), because we have one for loop, and in this case the if and while loop will not be satisfied every time. Okay, so that is why the time complexity is O(n), and this is considered as the efficient code. Okay, so I've shown you 2 approaches in this for this particular question, and also why we choose the second code as the efficient code. So I hope you've understood the codes and are clear with the implementation as well. Thank you for watching this video, and also before signing out, let's see the output of the quiz that I had asked you before. So if you see that this code, here we have given a list which is A1, 2, 3. The list is converted into a tuple. So after converting, in A, we will be storing a tuple which is 1, 2, 3. And if we see, then this line of code is trying to replace the 0th element with 2. But as we know that tuples are immutable. So that is why the answer will be an error. It will give you an error because tuples are not allowed to be changed. And this line tries to change the tuple. So that is why it will give you an error that the tuple is immutable. So the answer is the option 4. So thank you for watching this video. I hope you like it. And if you like the video, do like it, share it with your friends. If you like the video, do like it, share it with your friends, and subscribe the channel, as we're going to bring more videos, more type of videos with detailed code explanation along with implementation. Thank you.